Hello, this is the centre of Bradford and we're breaking new ground here tonight. The streets have been closed to traffic because we're all set for the first of two city centre cycle races for the Michelin Spring Cup. We start here tonight in Bradford and tomorrow we move over to Leeds. Well, the races are over an 850-metre course and there are almost 60 cyclists taking part. Well, Phil Liggett is going to be our commentator. Phil, just what sort of a race can we expect here in Bradford?
Well, John, now we've got nice blue skies. I think we're going to see an extremely fast race. The corners are very tight. There's going to be a lot of fighting to get in the front line. I think we'll be seeing a race around 30 mile an hour average. That's pretty good.
Well, we're looking forward to it. There's a good crowd building. We'll let you nip off to the commentary box. And while you do that, that gives us an opportunity for a closer look at the course. And we can do that through the eyes of a rider because we've enlisted the help of former Olympic and Commonwealth medalist Mick Bennett.
Real tricky course tonight, so let's go see it. This is probably one of the most difficult times in the race because the riders that aren't on the front grid, selected by the type of rider that they are, this is going to be really difficult for those at the back because these races go flat out from the gun. No quarter given. It's 1 hour of racing, very, very short. This is probably the only part of the circuit as they turn left into the haulings that's going to give them any sort of relief because it's a slight tailwind, quite fast, so they'll be changing down into their big gears, all the sprinters to the front, especially on the last lap. If you're not on the front down here, or near the front the first 3 or 4 riders, before you go left into Charles Street, then you really don't stand much chance of winning this race, because this race tonight is all about how quick you are over that last lap. Going left now into Charles Street, quite another difficult area here because the road really narrows up, and when you've got 60 riders coming down here at over 30-35 mile an hour, they'll be pushing and shoving one another to get around this last corner quite tight, having to brake quite sharply before this last 200-yard finishing straight. Made very difficult tonight because we've got prevailing winds catching these tall buildings and swirling round, making this into quite a heavy finishing sprint. I should imagine the guy that wins this, he's got to be on the front round about this position, ready to kick away to the line. As we approach it now, 10 metres, legs will be knotting up and tying up here, and they'll cross the line now.
So that's the view the cyclists are going to get. Well, I'm on the starting line. We're just seconds away from the start now, and I'm talking to some of the leading contenders, I'm sure. Danny Clark, you actually won this competition last year. What chances of retaining it?
Pretty hard, I think. I just come here forever ready at the last moment, so I hope in a few weeks' time I can go much better in the last two, but I'll give it my best anyway. I'm
sure you will. I'll move across to Malcolm Elliott from Sheffield. Has won a few milk race stages in his time, but this is going to be very different for you, Malcolm.
Well, yeah, it's the first criterium of our season, and it takes a bit of riding into and settling down. It's going to be interesting to see how everybody's going in this first one. But I'll be out to do well in my home county. Looking forward to it. And
I'm sure so will Sid Barris, who's a good old Bradford lad, aren't you, Sid? And you actually won a road race here, didn't you, a few years ago?
I've won in the city centre in 77 and 78, a long time ago.
Not too many years. Well, Sid, best of luck to everybody here. I'm sure those names are going to be in contention. I wonder who else is. Phil Liggett, perhaps you can advise us.
And, John, these are my top 10. David Miller, of course, the British champion from Newark. Number 3, Sid Barris, we know all about him. Steve Jockin, former British champion from the Isle of Man. Shane Sutton, top sprinter from Australia. Dave Mann, good local new professional. Malcolm Elliott, 4 years ago, a double Commonwealth Games gold medalist. Mark Walsham, 2 wins this year. Tony Doyle, a British champion. Danny Clark, of course, the number 1 tonight as the winner last year. And so there they are on the line, and this... a very different course for British professionals this year because they have been riding in far longer events than normal. Now they're facing what will probably turn out to be 60 laps around Bradford city centre. And the coloured jersey there of red, white and blue, David Miller, the British circuit race champion, gets the race underway. And of course the Yorkshiremen are going to want to come out on top. And what a great array of talent from Yorkshire there is. Well, let's go round the circuit first of all, around the City Hall here. And the field are going to want to find the way around this first lap because this is a very tight circuit, far tighter than normal, some very sharp bends. And John Herity, who's gained all his professional experience by racing in France for the top teams, now on the front of the pack. We're going to pick John out easily tonight because of these dark sunglasses. Let's hope he doesn't chase the sun away, because at the moment it's extremely pleasant here in the city centre. This is the corner I think might cause problems later on. You can see the road is extremely narrow, and Herity, the first rider, and anxious to see the way round. Shane Sutton of Australia, second place. Keith Lambert there from Denholm in third spot. Former British champion at both the road race and the circuit race. And so this 850 metres is going to take, I would think, just about a minute to get round. And that's going to seem like no time at all here. The rider's going to get quite dizzy tonight, and Herity setting a high tempo on the front of the group, stringing this bunch of very solid professional riders, all of these riders having come into the professional ranks over the last 10 years with golden reputations as amateur cyclists. Not least, of course, Shane Sutton, who's just gone over the top of Herity to take the lead. That's Sutton on the left of the picture now. He is a past winner of this type of city centre racing a couple of years ago, and indeed last year in a different series, so he's well experienced. Comes from Australia, and he first came over to Great Britain when he won a free ticket on British Airways through cycling in Australia. Decided he liked what he found, and he comes back now every winter, which is to him, of course, it's for our summer. Although this year I think all these riders are debating just when the summer is going to come. There's Lambert right in the centre of the picture, tailed by the man from Sheffield, Malcolm Elliott. 4 years ago, Elliott was preparing for the Commonwealth Games in Brisbane. He came back with 2 gold medals. Now, as a successful professional and 10 stage wins in the British Milk Race, which in itself is a record, Elliott will surely want to win here tonight.
And then, of course, it's round and round and round again.
Well, the rider's extremely anxious to get to the front of the group to try and find the way around. The road surface extremely good here in the city of Bradford, which is one side of the aspect of the course which is useful, but the rest, I'm afraid, it's very twisty, it's extremely narrow, and the riders in the first dozen are going to be at a distinct advantage. But of course, the problem with cycle racing is that sometimes you find yourself washed away to the back of the bunch, and then you're going to spend 1 or 2 laps trying to get back into the contention at the front. So Tony James going through at the front of the bunch there from South London. And Team Tactics will play their part, no doubt, tonight. The Falcon team, who have normally been extremely good in these television races, have had a slim season so far. They in fact felt they were racing so badly, the whole team flew off to Italy for a stage race. That's a multi-day race where the riders race every day for a week, and they feel now that they've found some form. Well, it's good to see Tony James right in the front of the action now. Tony James leads, Malcolm Elliott watching cleverly in second place, not overtaxing himself. The rider's already coming down this finishing straight at speeds in excess of 26 miles an hour. James on the right, then Lambert goes through in second place. Lambert, the cycle dealer, has a bicycle shop in Bingley, and just over the road, the historic site of the Bingley Five Rise locks.
Parcel service, who also have a team in the event tonight. Already supplies of batteries.
And already the back of the field beginning to thin out a little bit, so the pressure on. John Wainwright, nice to see John at the front too, another man from Sheffield. So quite clearly the Yorkshiremen are anxious to show the colours on what really is a rare opportunity to show themselves off in front of television cameras on Yorkshire territory. So Wainwright, led by the rider they call the Staffordshire Engine, Phil Bayton from near Kidderminster. And it looks like the first attack possibly coming on the far side of the road there. Tony Doyle, a world champion in 1980. Tremendous turn of speed. Doyle biting his teeth here, voted, in fact, elected himself this year as the world's #1 on the 6-day circuit because he had an outstanding successful series of races throughout the winter all over the tracks of Europe.
Very heavily backed indeed. He's had a couple of tumbles in the last 2 events. He was saying it earlier on, and his kidneys are actually...
So Doyle at the front, but as you could see there, the counter moves coming immediately from the big teams I was telling you about. And the man behind Doyle now, a rider for the Falcon squad, Keith Lambert. Quick to stop a very, very dangerous rider in Tony Doyle. And Doyle has only one other teammate in this race, and that is Danny Clark, the defending champion in the Michelin Spring Cup. So Clark and Doyle, a formidable tandem. But of course, they're facing a lot of competition from riders who have 5 and 6 men in their team. And not least, of course, the leader here, Malcolm Elliott, who can turn to another 4 teammates in that pack and ask for some help in keeping the pace high. So tactics count a lot in professional racing. Elliott now the rider on the front setting the pace. Elliott trailed there by the Moducell team leader of Steve Jockin, and Jockin is a rider who normally has good form for these events. He's been very, very upset by his poor form this year, but he came good on Sunday when he won a race not too far away from Hull, so quite clearly his form coming too. That's the Pocket Rocket, they call him, in second place. You can hardly see him there behind the 2 6-foot bodies of Malcolm Elliott on the front and Tony Doyle in third place. And I can spot Sid Barras third too. Barras in 4th or 5th place, and he's a teammate of Steve Jockin, so they're riding side by side. No doubt the odd word going across to them, indicating how they're feeling after these opening laps. And also Sid and Steve Jockin perhaps might be saying something like, well, you watch Malcolm Elliott, I'll take care of Tony Doyle. That sort of thing is what the riders will be thinking about, talking about at the head of the pack. No sign yet of Danny Clark, the Tasmanian Devil from Australia. He's a very shrewd professional rider. He's been at the top an awful long time. 2 world titles under his belt on the track in the strangely named Keirin Championship. It's a Japanese innovation into the World Professional Track Championships, and the sort of race that suits Danny Clark down to the ground, because apart from the legs, there's a little bit of elbowing comes in as well to get through to the finish. And of course, that could happen here tonight, because this circuit is tight, it's narrow, and if a rider wants to get to the front, he might need to use a little bit more than his legs to get there. Well, we'll watch out for it. I suspect the referees will too, but we'll see what happens later. So anxious faces here in the pack as they try to catch a glimpse of who's setting the pace, and it looks like Keith Lambert. Or is that Sid? No, it's Lambert. I should recognise those legs now. They call him Legs Lambert. I think he has the biggest legs in the cycling game. He never likes being referred to as the oldest rider on the professional circuit, but at 38 years of age, I'm afraid he has to lay claim to that fact. But what a marvellous cyclist he's been. One of Yorkshire's top men. Look at the size of those legs, pounding away like pistons. He's dragging the field round the bend again. Little glance over his shoulder, say, well, come on, lads. It's time somebody gave me a spell at the front. But he's not getting any help from Steve Jockin in second place, Phil Bayton in third place, and the boy in blue on the left there, Paul Sherwin, back home in England now, but John Herity's on the attack. So Herity in yellow goes through. Herity goes through. And look at the gap begin to open now. John Herity, a good rider on the attack, a feared sprinter, and out to soften up the captains of the other teams, because back in that bunch there, John Herity will be thinking of his sprinting teammates like Mark Walsham from Sheffield, because Walsham is a good sprint finisher. If he can bring him to the line, sheltered out of the wind, Walsham might produce the result that counts. So John Herity, his attack countered there by Bayton in second place, the big figure of Tony Doyle in third slot. And Herity realised now this one isn't going to work. He eases back. The old heart will be pounding away now at around 160 beats to the minute. His legs will be aching, and he will be a little bit anxious, I think, to get into the slipstream of some of the leading riders and try and recuperate. Boys in blue from the Nottinghamshire-based company. And now it's Steve Jones who's come back onto the front. Jones, Watson, Baton go round the bend in that order. I think a glimpse there of Tony James in 4th place. And the S is formed as the riders come out of Charles Street. And an attack goes ripping off the front there. Could have been James there at a glance, trying to now split the field again. And this man, Sid Barras, 38 years of age, Barras. He's won just short of 200 races. He's one of the few professional riders in Britain who can claim to have beaten Eddie Merckx, the great Belgian cyclist, when Merckx was at the very height of his career. Barras did it in the Tour of Switzerland, and for a day wore the leader's coveted yellow jersey. Well, there's Barras on the right, looks across at Tony James and just says to himself probably, well, if you're going to keep doing that, Tony, you're going to have to get rid of me to do it. So James back in the work seat at the front. Barras drops into the slipstream, about 3rd place. Well, I would think that Sid Barras is finding this circuit almost luxury tonight, because when he won here almost 10 years ago, the circuit was slightly over from the town centre on a steep hill, and he said he won then because he came down the steep hill. There was a plate glass window at the bottom, and he was the only one with the nerve to go round the corner so fast. So that's how he won, he said. I don't believe it, because Barras has won races all over the world.
And the lads can race out here in safety. Right, James Potter making his way down the finishing straight, and he'll be coming.
Well, the clouds are coming in off the moors, but at the moment, thankfully still dry. I think if it does rain here, this course now would become a skating patch.
Down to the floor originally, he was saying he had his specs clean, so he couldn't miss the race.
Tony James being left here by his Falcon riders to keep the pace high. The orders will be keep the pace high, stop the other riders attacking. Shane Sutton will be their man, hopefully, for the final sprint. He's tucked away in the first 10 at the minute. So James, the workhorse. On his right, could be Paul Sherwin coming through. 7 Tours de France under his belt. Paul Sherwin has now left France, where he was almost a native, living in Lille, and now come over to race for the rally team here in Britain. And Sherwin pulls them around. Although it doesn't look it here, this bend actually extremely narrow, filing the riders past roadworks. Sherwin brakes hard. Elliott in 2nd place. And despite a fairly good start to the season, Malcolm Elliott is yet to find any real form this year. But he's riding very close to the front, so he's clearly looking to put up a performance tonight in Bradford. Comes from Sheffield, of course. And a special sprint lap in 2 more laps to go, so we'll see again riders who are likely to appear in the final sprint tonight. Elliott on the front. On the far right, with his mouth open in typical fashion there, Phil Baton, the engine. They call him the engine because he never knows when to come off the front. He's just working all of the time. Baton's record goes way back to 1972, to the Munich Olympic Games, when he was 4th. So near, yet so far away. And there's a crash in the middle of the bunch. There's a crash. I heard the touch of wheels. Elliott on the floor there. I'm sure Malcolm Elliott went down. Paul Watson escaped it on the front, and that's one of the Percy Bilton riders on the floor. It's Mark Walsham, and that is sad, because Walsham from Barlow near Sheffield, a double winner this year, and a real contender for tonight. So Walsham is out of the race. So that was sad. Always the danger. Perhaps a slight loss of concentration, a touch of pedals in the spoke, and Walsham goes out. This is a sad sight, because Mark Walsham, at about this time last year, crashed at Coventry in the milk race and went out with a broken collarbone. And this rider really is trying to develop into a top professional, and I think has the talent. But Watson's heard the crash, and Watson's gone away. So Watson taking advantage there of the noise of tangled metal behind. He goes clear, and Baton trying to repair the damage, and the field is split. So this is the sprint lap. It's all happening at once, and this is what happens in these sort of city centre races. This time, when Watson crosses the line, he will receive a special prize on the line. So Watson's going to take it, I think. But the rider is chasing him down, and this rider on the left is a lapped rider. It's Mick Morrison, I think. And the rules here, if you do crash or puncture, you are allowed just 1 lap to get back in the race. And 1 lap, believe me, is only a single minute. And there's no penalty applied, so Morrison, I think, has retired. He's pulled over. Watson now trying to survive to the line for a special prize. but they're coming right up on him here. This is Phil Baton trying to bring the rest of the field up. Watson swings around now, glance over his shoulder. I think this is going to be a nice one for Paul Watson. They're not going to close in on him. Oh, look at his face, but he's got it. Paul Watson takes the cash prize on the line. And so we can now have confirmation of the sprint lap this evening, won by Paul Watson, Mike Doyle in second place from the Isle of Man, and Sid Barras there in third slot. So let's go down to John Helms, who's now in the pits.
Well, Malcolm Elliott, you must be bitterly disappointed to be out of the race.
Yeah, I am. I'm say when I spoke to you on the line earlier, I didn't think I'd be back here so soon. But
what went wrong?
Well, it was an incident around the back straight here. One rider tried to ride up the inside of me, between me and the railings, in fact, and he locked his handlebars in mine, and we both went sprawling. I think one or two others came down, but it's something which I wouldn't have expected in professional bike racing, frankly.
An attack on the far side now. Saunders sensing the capture of Williams. Or is he? No, the rally boy spotted that well. Straight across the road, Paul Sherwin. Marshall the move of Pete Saunders, but the gap is over.
His gap has been closed, and they're all back together again.
And the race has come together, and still in this pack we've seen Shane Sutton of Australia, the Demon Sprinter. So one rider going clear now with just 8 laps to go, and it's that man, Tony James. Now he's become the attacker rather than the workhorse. James goes through, and all the rally team are now in these blue jerseys are on the defensive. So, having dictated this race pattern with long breakaways by Dave Mann and then by Jeff Williams, Tony James is now out on his own. Paul Sherwin leads the bunch now. It looked like Steve Jockin in second place behind Paul Sherwin. Well, this would be a very, very pleasant win indeed if James could pull this one off. The rider who's always doing the chasing but never the winning, now trying to be the winner for once. Paul Sherwin, the workhorse in the bunch. 7.5 laps to go to the finish, that's all. And if I say that's all, it's a long, long way around this circuit. So James, just look at that face. You would think he was out for a Sunday bicycle ride, not a flat-out race around the city centre of Bradford. There's Steve Sefton in the blue, Ian Binder there. And that is all the riders left in this race now, and inch by inch James is going. It looks like Sherwin's trying to get across as well. So the wily old Tour de France veteran is trying to bridge the gap. Now if these two get together, there's trouble. If Sherwin can get across, 2 riders will work together to outwit the main field, and then they'll take each other on in the sprint. That will be the tactic, I'm sure, despite the fact they ride for rival teams, because it's all for one, and then it's one for all.
Right, lone leader, Tony James, right, James searching for a victory.
The rider in white on the inside there, well, that's the British National Cyclo-Cross champion riding tonight, Steve Douce, who is an absolute star and unbeatable when you race across fields in the winter. And this year he's decided to see what he can do in professional road racing. Very nice to see him in the bunch at this stage of the event. So, still James holding off. If only he could look round, he'd spot Sherwin clear of the field. He might well decide to ease up and let Sherwin join him, because 2 men at the front at this stage will be better than one, that's for sure. The figures here, there's Shane Sutton, number 9. I also saw number 7, Keith Lambert, trying to break up the rhythm of the bunch behind, because now they want their man to win. Tony James, of course, will give the Falcon team a fine send-off tonight. We haven't seen the ever-ready rider yet, and they come round this time. 5 laps to go now. And so, with 5 laps to go, we still have the field splitting at the front. Tony James in the lead. Second place, Paul Sherwin. And Shane Sutton trying desperately to slow down the bunch at the back. Steve Jockin at the front at the moment. Jockin in great danger if he gets up. This little man, I think he stands at about 5'1.5" in his stocking feet. and yet he catapults out the bunch when it comes to a sprint. He can lift the speed up from 15 to 25, 30 mile an hour in a matter of 10 or 15 yards. Tremendous sprinter. So Sherwin not being allowed very much off the front of the bunch and getting absolutely nowhere there in pursuit of this rider, Tony James. 4.5 laps to go. Well, Tony James would be a very popular winner tonight. He rarely ever wins top races. And if ever a man deserves to be victor here tonight in the city of Bradford, then it's certainly James. He's done all of the work to bring back the attacks, and now he's trying to steal the show at the last knockings. So there is Paul Sherwin beginning to roll a little bit now. Pete Saunders has got to the front to try and close down this race and make it a sprint between the top boys. Sherwin has had enough. He's going to be swept up by Peter Saunders.
3 more laps to go.
And there is Tony James. Well, he's been a professional since 1981, and in those 5 years he's only won 8 professional races, Tony James, and he hasn't won a race since 1983. So what a great victory it would be tonight if James could pull it off. And I wonder how he feels. The old legs beginning to tingle now as nerves take over, because he'll begin to realise 3 laps to go. He has a real chance of victory now. There he goes, and edging away now. So Tony James from Sydenham Hill in London has a real chance of victory now. Look at Saunders. This is the danger point now. The psychological couple of laps before the bell. The face on Peter Saunders said it's all one rider from Kingston in Surrey chases another from London. Well, the Percy Bilton team has had a tremendous season now. We've seen Mark Walsham, the leader of the Percy Bilton team, crash out and go to hospital. Now we're seeing Pete Saunders make a last effort to get across to Tony James. James now inside, 3 laps to go. Saunders goes through in second place. So what a climax now as riders will take risks. The rain beginning to fall again. The road surface becoming more slippery than ever. And Paul Watson trying to bring these survivors, and that's what they are tonight, back up to him. And it looks as though Saunders made the mistake, because a good turn of speed by Watson has closed down on Saunders. Still we have Keith Lambert in contention. Still the possibility of a local man, but Lambert now above all would love to see James win this, because in the same team, of course, the same Falcon team as the rider out front, Keith Lambert will take this as a home victory if Tony James, and here he is, can win it. Tony James now, he's won a British Championship on the track in 1980 with David Acomb, who's now a successful professional in Holland, but he's never won a road race since 1983. Well, what a day to choose it. The Falcon team were despondent a week ago, saying our riders are on bad form. We really hope they can just find something from somewhere, and they're doing it tonight. And what a night to do it in Bradford. We had sunshine at the start, rain at the finish, and James is putting up a tremendous performance. Undoubtedly, for my money, the rider of the night. He's chased down and been responsible for all the breakaways being caught, and now he's going away to try and pick up the final winner's victory. I don't think anybody's going to stop him now. When he gets through the finish next time, he'll hear the music as the bell rings. Look at that gap now, and I think, you know, he's going to get that 10 seconds gap as well, which will earn him an extra £200. Well, I think James has passed through that psychological period. The riders have made their effort. The camera a little bit foreshortens the gap here. Keith Lambert has found his way to the front. He'll put the brakes on. He'll have this style. He'll appear to be racing, but he won't be. He'll try to slow the riders down. Lambert goes through. Tony Doyle there, trapped in the bunch. So too is Danny Clark of Australia. And I'm not too sure, in fact, whether Clark is still in that group. There's the bell. 1 lap to go. I'm putting a watch on too, because if he's got that 10 seconds on that lap, he will also have earned himself £200. Here comes the breakaway now. The watch running on the line. They go through. 8 seconds is the gap. So James rather, could come through here on the line, win the race for sure. And if his gap is 10 seconds, he'll also win the final prize of £200. What a way to end the night. We've survived crashes here, and Tony James has made sure that tonight he will come back to the very top of British professional cycling. And the counter-attack's coming now from the riders, and I think they're going to fight out second place, because Tony James has now opened a gap big enough to give him what is now a lap of honour around the streets of the city of Bradford. And this is going to be a very happy victory indeed. A glance over his shoulder, hardly a wheel to be seen. He's got the gap that matters. Cheers all the way round now for Tony James, coming home to one of his best victories as a professional cyclist. 6th in the British Championships way back in 1981. Virtually nothing ever since. And there's the punch for the crowd now. Tony James is landing the big one, and that's the sign he hasn't made for 3 years. Tony James is first. The clock is running on him now, and he's not going to get the £200, but he won't care, because he's there well and truly in first place.
Well, Tony James, breathless, I imagine. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
How did the race go from your point of view?
Very well, apart from one anxious moment where Malcolm Elliott fell off right in front of me and I actually rode over his back wheel. I just didn't know whether I was going to come down or not. Fortunately, I didn't. But there was a rather large gap that was left, and I had to bridge that. And once I got over that, I started to get a lot of confidence then. The rallies were going very well tonight, and we've done a lot of chasing because Shane Sutton is our main sprinter. And when I caught the rider that was away, Mike Williams, I just went and managed to get the gap. Fortunately, I kept it to the end.
And your first major win?
It is, yeah. Very good one as well.
Certainly.
Hope there's more.
Tony, congratulations again. Well
Thank you
done.
very much. Thank you.
So a delighted Tony James, and well he might be, winning tonight. In second place was Steve Jockins from the Isle of Man from the Modricel team, and third place, the man from Yorkshire, Sid Barras.
So what a dramatic race we've had here in Bradford, but at the end of the day, the honours go to Londoner Tony James. He's the man on the winner's rostrum, and he takes the customary yellow jersey for winning tonight's Michelin Spring Cup. We now move on to Leeds. Let's hope we have just as exciting a race there as we've had in Bradford. From here, good night.
Championships way back in 1981. Virtually nothing ever since. And there's the punch for the crowd now. Tony James is landing the big one, and that's the sign he hasn't made for 3 years. Tony James is first.
Tony James of London winning the first round of the Michelin Spring Cup in Bradford on Wednesday night. Well, good evening from Leeds, where we go into the second round of the Michelin Spring Cup with our city centre cycling. And if we have a race like that one again, it's going to be quite a thriller. Phil Liggett, our commentator. It's a bit overcast. Do you think the same thing might happen again as happened on Wednesday?
Well, ominous clouds, John. Black, and who knows, it could rain. But there certainly was, you say, a controversial situation that happened at Bradford, and if we can have a look at that in slow motion, we might see.
Well, that's right. That was the crash between Malcolm Elliott and Mark Walsham.
That's right.
Just talk us through it, Phil.
Well, there you can see it on the inside is where we should concentrate. Malcolm Elliott in the white, second man from the inside. The bunch coming across and giving Malcolm no room at all. He pushes Mark Walsham here. Walsham hits the barrier and goes down immediately. The question is, was it Elliott's fault?
Well, thank you, Phil. While you nip off to the commentary box, we can find out. Malcolm, you said there's some unprofessional riding the other night.
Well, I think the incident started when Mark came down the side of me at a point where there wasn't any room, and my hand came out there to hold him off me and try and hold him behind me in order, to give us both the room. But I couldn't keep him back, and he came alongside me. At which point I'd got nowhere to go. He started to hit the fence and was going to go down, and my outstretched arm that you see there is in fact trying to just leaving myself away from him, to get away from the wreckage.
All right, Mark, well, you better go because you're off in just a minute or two. I'm going to bring Mark Walsham in, the man who unfortunately can't ride tonight. Mark, what were your feelings about that incident?
Well, I was very sad about that. I was, as you can see from the slow motion replay, I was right alongside Malcolm. I wasn't interfering with his line at all.
Do you think it was his fault?
Definitely his fault. His arm came across and pushed me straight into the barriers. I don't think it was his intention to cause a crash. I think he was just trying to create a bit more room for himself.
All right,
But,
Mark, well, sorry
it's
you
not
can't
very
be
professional riding on his part.
OK, Mark, sorry not to see you in the race. Well, on the other night in Bradford on Wednesday, we had a good close look at the course through the eyes of Mick Bennett, and we can do exactly that again because the man who won Olympic and Commonwealth medals is going to take us round the course, and it is a little bit windy tonight.
Well, the riders that survived in Bradford have got one of the fastest courses in the country to contend with tonight. If it rains, I can see that we're going to be in for plenty of crashes. So from the start line, let's go look at the course. Well, the first thing that they'll notice is this quite reasonably steep climb up Park Row, which is in actual fact the finishing straight. It's quite steep from the bottom, but from the line, this first corner, they won't really have many problems with. The surface a little bit bumpy, but they should be coming round here, I would say close on 30, 35 mile an hour after that first lap. It really is quite windy, so they'll be trying to protect themselves behind the leading riders till rather late in the race. Again, left into East Parade. This is going to be the fastest part of the circuit, and this is where the sprinters will be putting themselves in the winning positions on the last lap. Long sweeping left-hander into quite an appropriately named Infirmary Street, and if there's any pushing and shoving going on tonight, it's quite aptly named. This is going to be the last chance for those big finishing sprinters to get near the front, because they'll go sweeping around this very tight left-hander. No need to slow down or change gear because they'll be in their finishing gear as they approach Park Row, and there's the finish line in front of us. They'll be out the saddle all over the road here, pushing and shoving, trying to get to that front position. If they're not on the front round about now, they've got no chance of winning, and they'll be pushing for the line as we hit it now.
Well, already this evening, one person has crossed the finishing line, a victor, because we had a ladies' criterium race, a field of 28 ladies, including the legendary Beryl Burton, the most famous woman cyclist of all time, and her daughter Denise. But there was a surprise winner when the checkered flag went out. It was Elizabeth Wormsley, first across the finishing line.
Thank you very much, John. Well, the riders are on the line. Let's have a look now at 10 to watch out for tonight. Number 1, worn by the champion, Dave Miller from London. 2, Sid Barras, 3rd at Bradford. Steve Jockin, the runner-up at Bradford from the Isle of Man. Keith Lambert, they call him Legs, from Denham. Shane Sutton, the Australian sprinter. Tony James, of course, the overall winner at Bradford. Dave Mann, a good young new professional. Malcolm Elliott, the Commonwealth Games champion. Danny Clark, the title holder. And Alan Dipple, an unknown Australian. And the riders are underway. So this circuit, every bit as short indeed as the one at Bradford, 850 yards around. I think the road's a little bit wider, so the action, I would suspect, will be just that little bit quicker. Well, these riders finding the road extremely slippery at Bradford are extremely worried now by the clouds overhead. Will it rain again? And sad to say that Mark Walsham unable to start, of course. Neil Martin, his teammate in yellow there, 3rd in line as they come around the bend. And just to take you around the circuit very briefly, heading down now towards Infirmary Street as the riders go away in the distance there, around Infirmary Street, and eventually swinging up into Park Row, where they will pass through the finish. So already the riders coming around to complete the opening lap. Neil Martin on the front.
So there we are, the whole field coming through. Neil Martin leading the latest professional to the recruits.
And so Neil Martin leads the race through to complete the first lap. Well, Martin is thinking perhaps of a top performance in this year's milk race, and indeed from this event he will travel to the heart of the Welsh mountains to ride some of the milk race routes. The milk race, of course, gets underway at the end of this month, 1,100 miles, and the first time all of the British professionals will be taking part. So Martin on the front. Malcolm Elliott showing no signs of the fall he had at Bradford, lying there in third place in the white jersey on the right of the picture now, keeping a look over the shoulder there of Phil Baton, just sighting himself nicely as they go down East Parade again. You can see here the roads are completely wide, and it really is going to create quite a nice situation for the sprinters to see the sight. So one new rider, in fact, here tonight. He wears 62, Alan Dipple from Australia. And there he is in the bright red jersey in the centre of the picture, about 5 or 6 men back.
Looking good tonight as they go through now. Already one of the riders showing on the front there, number 55, leading them through.
Well,
Mike Oliver.
it may not appear too hilly, this course, on the television screen. In fact, any of you that know the city of Leeds will know that Park Row is indeed quite an incline, and normally, because of the traffic system here, the traffic goes down the hill. But we're in reverse of the one-way system, and so the riders having to climb Park Row to the finish, and this is going to check their speed when they have this sweeping descent here out of East Parade into Infirmary Street. They're going to have to really work hard to climb Park Row up towards the line. And there they are again, making that turn out of Infirmary Street. The luxury of this wide, almost boulevard here, as the riders get a chance to see everybody. And Tony James, well, we should pick him out fairly simply tonight because he wears a leader's yellow jersey. This isn't Tony James, this one. This is John Wainwright. You can see James with the white band down his crash helmet there in the centre of the picture, tucked in nicely, watching everybody here because Tony, first time a winner since 1983, so we can certainly call him a surprise in the city of Bradford. But like anybody that wears a leader's yellow jersey in any cycle race, that's the symbol throughout world cycling, they become new, mature men. And James quite clearly anxious to win again tonight here in Leeds. So John Wainwright, he comes from Sheffield, not too far away along the M1. Alan Dipple there, the Australian, anxious to impress, now racing here in Britain, and he's in second place. Wainwright's been a member of all the top professional teams in Britain at one stage or another, signed originally for the famous rally team that used to race in Europe. And there he is, swings off, lets Dipple go through. And these early laps, of course, the riders trying to loosen off those legs as much as they can. This type of racing attracts crowds of 15 to 20,000 and more all over Europe, very often daily throughout the summer months. And as you can see here, an enormous crowd in the city centre at Leeds, feeling the continental atmosphere that's come to the city in a form of a full professional cycle race. So as the riders still find their way round, taking the riders round the group, Hugh Ashworth, a professional without a major team, and those of you who were watching when we were coming from Bradford will remember that I did describe the importance in professional racing of these teams, because the teams work together with each other, members of the team, and they can combine very successfully indeed to wipe out these individual riders. And one rider now trying to reverse that theory, Steve Sefton, just passed out the picture in blue, has gone clear. He has no teammates in this race. Nobody will be trying to break up the rhythm of the chasers. They'll all want to hunt him down. So we have 2 laps to go to a special sprint lap of the night. And that is where the rider first across the line in 2 laps from now will receive a prize of £100. And Sefton, the man who has no support in that back bunch, has gone. So I think it would be a nice result for Sefton if he can win money under the nose of the big trade teams. Sefton goes clear. A year ago, he was one of Britain's top international amateurs. And now he's having to ride for himself. There he is, Steve Sefton, and it's Phil Baton, one of the big team leaders coming through from the Modusel squad, closing down. And Baton's the first man across, quickly joined there by Paul Watson in that green jersey. Malcolm Elliott in 4th place. Elliott anxious to know those legs aren't too stiff from the tumble he took at Bradford. Sefton still leads. 1.5 laps to go to the £100 special prize. In cycling terms, they call this a preem, spelt prime. So coming up again, Park Row. 1 lap to go this time. Watson takes the front in the green jersey. Shane Sutton, I can see, the little Australian sprinter. And an attack on the far left by Neil Martin. He can smell the £100 as well. Martin first into the bend now. 2nd place, Tony Doyle. So Neil Martin comes round, and this time around it's £100 on the line for the first rider back. No second prize. Neil Martin winds it up. And Martin glances over his shoulder. He's got the gap. Now, will he go home from the city of Leeds tonight? £100 bid up. And look at the gap he's got. Somebody has quite clearly allowed the elastic to stretch. So Martin now will be the winner of the sprint lap when he crosses the line. A prize of £100, and he's got the gap that matters. So the slight incline here up Park Row is not going to slow him down a little bit. But the action coming from the back here, very fast reaction with Tony Doyle, but it's too late. It's too late indeed. Neil Martin takes it from Tony Doyle. So Neil Martin wins £100. A generous applause there from the crowd, and as you can see, a wonderful crowd it is too.
The Continental punted towards him the best ranking as a 6-day rider, despite the fact that he doesn't have to ride with a constant partner on 6-day racing.
And so there's confirmation of the sprint lap result. Neil Martin clear on his own. Tony Doyle took 2nd place in the sprint, and Paul Watson in that green jersey was 3rd. As you can see, the whole of this pack is constantly moving around inside. And a touch of wheels or a change of direction by any one of these professionals, and you're in trouble. Attack now by Mark Bell. So Mark Bell tries to split the field. Winner of only 1 professional race last year. Bell has been in Australia all winter, so he's looking a little bit bronze, despite the rather bleak and wet start to England's summer. Bell stretching them out. And the rally team, of which Mark Bell is a member, is really coming on to form in these races. They had a marvellous time at Bradford, although they finally lost the race. And Bell marshalled there by Legs Lambert, cycle dealer from Denham. He's in 2nd place. Elliott contented there in 3rd place. So many tactics involved in professional cycling. The computers in the brains of each one of these riders, trying to work out the right combination of things to decide if it's worth expending energy. Because, as professional riders often do say, in any one race you can only seriously attack 2 or 3 times. After that, you're hanging on. Tony Doyle now keeping the tempo high, whipping down the back of the course here at speeds in excess of 35 miles an hour on the descent. Around this sweeping corner, adverse camber, Doyle bringing the riders. Sid Barras, the popular Yorkshire favourite, there now in 2nd place. Paul Sherwin has moved up into 3rd. The veteran of 7 Tours de France, that 2,500 miles epic that ties up the whole of Europe throughout the month of July. So that's Sherwin on the left of the screen, John Herity on the right. And this time it's 2 laps to go to another sprint of the night. So 2 laps to go. First rider back in 2 laps' time at that finishing point will receive £100. Herity is the rider trying to snatch it.
Very, very quickly, and it's Tony James who really is rising to the occasion. That yellow jersey has been
Well, it hasn't worked. Herity looks over his shoulder. The yellow jersey of Tony James, the winner at Bradford, now has come right to the fore.
and now it's right at the head of the boat.
Paul Sherwin on James's wheel. Daylight appearing amongst the riders here in the centre of the pack. Jeff Williams, I caught a glimpse of there. Former British road race champion when he was an amateur. And Danny Clark, the great Australian, hits the front now. This former world champion. Twice a world champion in his long career. And Danny Clark now winding it up. Over from Tasmania. Malcolm Elliott recognises a good wheel to follow. Tucks in nicely behind Clark. 1 lap to go and £100 next time around at this point. Clark on the front, Elliott in second place. This could be a cracking sprint. 1 lap to go to the sprint. This could be a superb finish now. Third place there being held by Sid Barras. 3 terrific sprint finishers. These men who have this great ability. 3/4 of a lap to go. So John Herity washed away from the lead there in those dark glasses. Danny Clark tried to help his teammate here, Tony Doyle, so the two ever-ready boys at the front. This is the benefit of team tactics. Look at the face of Clark. Concentration by Clark here. He's actually trying to get Tony Doyle in second place, keep him out of the wind, bring him round. Watch for Doyle as he tries to launch himself off Clark's wheel, and Elliott will get the advantage too in third place. So as Clark brings him round now, he looks to Doyle. Come on, Tony, he's saying, come on, £100 on the line. But he's missed Malcolm Elliott on the far left in white. Elliott's going clear, and Malcolm Elliott takes on Clark. This is going to be a photo finish, my goodness me. Well, that will go to a photo finish. I would think possibly Tony Doyle may have got it by a centimetre on the right of the picture. There it is. Tony Doyle was the man who won it. Danny Clark got second, and Malcolm Elliott only took third place. People have been wondering all day what's been going on as the roads have been steadily closed down. Magnificent cooperation from the city of Leeds, and especially from the Leeds police here. And the result is a very fast and furious bike race that's showing no signs of breaking up at all yet, and no real indication as to who might win the final sprint. Lambert would dearly like to win here. And so when they come round this time, it will be 2 laps to go to the special sprint lap, and again that will mean £100 on the line. 2 laps to go. And the riders will certainly rise to the occasion now. There's £100 over the line. Then they get back in 2 laps' time. Now, is there anybody going to try and launch an attack? The men who can't sprint must surely have a go here. Tempo riding on the front by Gary Sadler, keeping the pace extremely high. The tactic here to keep it high, stop the attacks of the riders, and hoping that Sid Barras, his teammate, might well get through at the line and steal £100. Mike Doyle goes through. And when the riders begin to group like this, there's surely going to be an attack, and there is. Steve Sefton has a go. The rider with no help in the pack goes clear. Well, this would certainly pay his petrol money back home to South London if he can pull this one off. Steve Sefton goes clear. 1 lap to go now, the sprint lap. There's the bell, the sprint lap, £100 if he can hit that line next time round. He looks over his shoulder, and again, big Tony Doyle picks up the speed in the main field. Sefton using all the road here, tightly takes the bend, just chops through that straw bale. Doyle comes through leading the pack. Sefton searching for those gears now, pushes it into the highest pedaling ratio he can find, lays his bike into that bend, 45-degree angle, drives out of the corner, and while the field strings out behind him, another glance over his shoulder. Well, Steve, rather, the race is with you, so don't look over your shoulder, go for it. He comes down the back of the course now. If he can only kick well out of the last bend, he'll win up the climb of Park Road. Look at the face of Steve Sefton here. I would think he picks up this £100. It will be the biggest prize he's ever won as a professional cyclist. He only turned professional halfway through last year, and I think he's going to get it. Watson in green coming for him. Phil Payton on the right of the course now. Clearly Sefton's dying, but he hits the line and takes the £100. And so there's the result of that sprint. A win for Steve Sefton, and the 2 men chasing, Paul Watson second, Tony Doyle third. The sign of a rider hunting for the win, a brilliant sprinter, in fact, Malcolm Elliott. An ideal favourite tonight, taken out of the race at Bradford in that accident, and very disappointed he wasn't able to shine. Still plenty of riders here willing to stare up. This is Hugh Ashworth again. 4 riders trying to get clear. Ashworth got the pocket rocket. Steve Jochen in second place. Lambert in third. Pete Saunders in fourth. Malcolm Elliott, he must be getting tired. He's down to fifth place now. But Elliott immediately in that white jersey comes back on the inside there of Peter Saunders in yellow, led by Hugh Ashworth here. Legs Lambert. Goes through there in third place. He has this grimace permanently on his face there, does Keith Lambert. It appears to be a smile when you catch a glimpse of it, but I'm sure it isn't. And so Ashworth enjoying himself at the front, an unsponsored professional rider here, so he has all of these riders unwilling to give him any room at all to manoeuvre. And indeed, Ashworth immediately pushed back into the field. Mike Doyle is the rider on the front here now. Second, Mark Bell. And Mark Bell, too, a great sprinter. He's pulled off one or two marvellous sprint finishes. I can remember him winning two great stages of the milk race, one at York and one at Blackpool. And the famous Red Arrow display team on that occasion, on hearing that a British rider had won a stage of the milk race at Blackpool, flew overhead and released red, white and blue flares. A very emotional occasion a couple of years ago. So there he is, Mark Bell on the front. Lambert in second place, Alan Dipple in third slot. Dipple, that big rider, searching for the gears in that red jersey. Seems to be enjoying his first race in Britain very much indeed. Mixing it with the best of the riders at the front, and I'm quite sure with those legs, and it looks as though he's a man of about 6'2", he's going to be a fairly strong sprint finisher. Lambert on the front now, Dipple in second place. Well, this has been a most intriguing tactical battle. There hasn't been an attack that succeeded yet, but there's been plenty of action at the front, and the riders constantly monitoring the men who come to the front to keep the pace high. They're now working out which one of these riders has kept the strength in his legs to win the final sprint, of course. And Malcolm Elliott has now shown himself at the front. Lambert is in second place. Mike Doyle is third. Dipple is fourth. And these wide three-lane carriageways here in the city of Leeds are giving the riders plenty of room for manoeuvre and a lot of room for a surprise attack. Still, the double Commonwealth Games gold medalist, Malcolm Elliott, now a successful professional rider. So this year, of course, in Edinburgh, he will see his titles pass on to someone else. And attacks on the left of the screen. Tony Doyle, I think it is. No, it's not. It's Tim Harris having a go. No, Peter Stevenson. Peter Stevenson having a go here. Well, Peter Stevenson was part of the American team that came to Europe, hopefully to ride the Tour of Spain, which is taking place at the moment, and then onto the Tour de France. And sadly, the Americans were recalled because of the Libyan situation, and Peter Stevenson has returned back to Britain here, and so finds himself racing around the city of Leeds tonight, instead of finishing up on the heights of the Sierra Nevada this evening, where the Tour of Spain, in fact, ended. So there he is, Peter Stevenson, down from Tyneside, checking out what damage he's doing, and my goodness me, he's doing some damage. He's split the field here, the first split we've seen all night. Ian Binder in second place, Keith Lambert always there in third slot. And look at the damage here. Alan Dipple, the last man on to the back of this Express, the big Australian in red. And it looks like Tony Doyle is being left to bring up the main field. Dipple on the front, Paul Watson in second place. And sure enough, Doyle is certainly across the gap. And as they come, oh, it looked as though Dipple there slipped his gears. His bike shuddered a little bit. Finds the rhythm again. 2 laps to go for the next sprint. So it will be £100 for the winner in 2 laps' time up the road here in Park Row. Remember that we're racing the complete reverse way of the one-way system here around the city of Leeds. So they have to climb the hill in Park Row every time. Ian Binder there, number 50. Alan Dipple finding himself on the front. Now, is he going to give us any indication at all as to how good he really is? because he has 1.5 laps to go to that £100 prize for the first rider across the line. He's certainly doing a lot here to keep this pace high. One or two riders will be very pleased about this. Ian Binder there in that white jersey in 4th place, Watson in 2nd slot. But he comes up and sees the banner, so it'll be 1 lap to go on the sprint lap next time around. Watson in green. Phil Baton keeps easing out of the saddle there to keep himself in contention, now in 4th place. And there we are, 1 lap to go, £100 at this point next time around. The yellow jersey of Tony James just passing through the picture now with that white band on his crash helmet, never far away from the action and not wasting an ounce of energy, waiting for that big finish in about 10 laps time. So Dipple on the front, half a lap to the £100. Surely they won't let him take them all the way round to the line now. Baton fastening his toe clips there, tightening those feet in. They're rather like putting the feet onto skis here. They lock them in. The only snag is when they fall off, they tend to go where the bike goes because they don't come out. And so again, it looks as though Dipple is having trouble selecting those gears for the sprint as he rings round that corner now, heads towards Park Row. Dipple sees the band now, £100 on the line. Watson on the left of the picture now in that green jersey. Dipple drops right out of it now. Lambert tries, he disappears, and it looks as though Paul Watson will take it. The rally rider takes it. He'll be delighted with that. £100 to Paul Watson, and people say that Paul Watson isn't a sprinter. Well, I think they'll be a little surprised by that result, but there was no doubt that Paul Watson took it. And there we have the result then, an excellent sprint win for Paul Watson, 2nd Tony Doyle, and 3rd the Staffordshire engine Phil Baton. And John Wainwright here from Sheffield, we've seen a lot of him on the front of the bunch this evening. 2nd place Chris Wharton. Still absolutely no indication as to who is going to win this event. Lambert looks over his shoulder, probably thinking it's about time some of my Falcon teammates came up and gave me a spell up here, but he's not watching, because watch Herity on the right. Herity takes his chance. He saw Lambert ease up. He saw Lambert lose his concentration. Herity launches an attack, and again Phil Baton tries to bridge the gap. Well, this race being run off at an average speed of 27 miles an hour, so on this sharp descent and the adverse cambered corner here, as they swing down into Infirmary Street, well, the riders are touching speeds of 35 miles an hour. The face on Baton there in 2nd place tells it all. Malcolm Elliott happily ensconced in 3rd slot. He won't be feeling the pain quite like Baton because, of course, he has the advantage of the slipstream. And it's all over. Herity has decided that they were watching him just a little bit too closely. He looks over his shoulder there. He even has a word with him, I think. Gary Sadler, almost by default there, washes out in the front as the riders all freewheel. And this enormous field is still together. Well, the event is beginning to come towards its close now, and there's still no sign of a winner here, because when we were at Bradford, it was Tony James who was already clear and on his own, and there's no question at the moment of that. He's in the centre of the pack in that yellow jersey, and I would think that James might not be too happy with the way things are going. Glenn Mitchell on the front now for the Percy Bilton team, a team that's lost Mark Walsham, remember, out from Bradford, and a spectator here tonight. And now the cat and mouse begins. The riders slow down a little bit. They're waiting now for somebody to take up the action. So as the pack come over, it looks to me as though it could, and it looks as though there was Paul Sherwood in the sidelines there. Well, he's very, very lucky. He gets back into the race. He has his free lap out. But if that had happened in the last 5 laps of the race, and we're not very far away, then he would have had to retired from the event. No free laps for whatever reason in the final 5 circuits, of course, and I think that's a very fair decision. Hugh Ashworth returns to the front in that blue and white jersey, or does he? Washed away and out of it. And so 48, Steve Wallington, a Welshman who has had 1 or 2 excellent rides in these city centre races, and they all look left, and out pops Bob Downs. Now this is a very good attack by Bob. It's not long now before the referees are going to show the riders 5 laps to go, and when they do, Bob Downs is the sort of man who could go clear. So Downs goes through. We haven't had any rider gain more than 3 seconds all night. And as Downs goes through to an enormous cheer, this is a serious attack. And again, Baton is left to try and close the gap. Look at the face on Phil Baton there. Baton is the workhorse of the Modusel team because he's hoping to keep this race together in the hope that Steve Jockin or Sid Barras will win the race, because remember at Bradford, it was Steve Jockin who finished second, it was Sid Barras who finished third. Baton here has no sprint finish. His job will be simply to keep this race together and allow his 2 sprinters to take the line in a few laps' time. And so Jockin is safely back in the bunch there, and it's Phil Baton who does his job so well and brings back the attack by Downs. Well, Downs will be anxious to try and recover from that. And so when they come up the hill this time, we should see 5 laps to go. I think the judges have made that decision, and another attack goes, and this time another Percy Bilton rider goes. Well, I think they really have ridden this well. And there we are, 5 laps to go to the finish, just 5 times 850 metres, and Glenn Mitchell is the man having a go. Puffing and blowing as he tries to get the most out of this bike now. Glenn Mitchell goes clear, and look at the yellow jersey on the front here, freewheeling, trying to slow down. Even a second will help Mitchell escape, because once the elastic stretches, they will desperately try to get Mitchell away. And they're making a mistake because the attacks aren't coming. They're coming from the centre of the field. Danny Clark in the white sleeves there has also put the brakes on. John Herity has put the brakes on. Clark's tactics, I don't understand. He wants help. But as Mitchell goes through, let's not forget the gap of the night, because if Mitchell gets 10 seconds on the line, then he will receive an additional £200 prize. So Mitchell comes through, 4 laps to go this time. And there's a reaction now from the field. The clock starts counting. He needs 10 seconds. He has 3, 4, just about 5 seconds on the line there. Halfway for Glenn Mitchell. I'm afraid the judges won't give him £100. He needs the 10 seconds for £200. And again, Keith Lambert is left to bring up this field. Well, Glenn Mitchell has been a great track rider in his time. He's won professional and amateur titles, but he doesn't win too many road races. He's trying now to shed the field. 3.5 laps to go. Lambert, look at the face on Lambert there as he tries now to bring back this field. Tony James, the yellow jersey, the man who won at Bradford, tucked in nicely there in 5th, 6th or 7th place. And nobody helping, of course, Lambert, because the rider in 2nd place in this line is a teammate of Mitchell's. He wants nobody to bridge that gap. That's John Herity. Danny Clark in 3rd place. And if they bring Clark to this line anywhere near the winner, this demon sprinter from Tasmania could well take the flag. There he is in the white sleeves, Danny Clark, former world champion on 2 occasions on the track. If ever Danny Clark tells you he's going badly, he's not on form, it always means the complete opposite, and Clark was complaining of bad form at Bradford. Now he's in the hunt. He's smelling victory here. Watch out for Clark on the right of the picture in those white sleeves. Sid Barras is at the front now. Gary Sadler too. This is going to be a tremendous sprint finish. Danny Clark now grits his teeth and winds it up. Sid Barras spots the danger. He's known Danny Clark for 10 years. Look at the face of Sid Barras from Keighley in Yorkshire. Tries to get Clark's wheel. This is the big effort by Clark now. Clark sees who he's got. He knows Sid's ability as a great sprinter. 187 victories in a career that goes way back into the 60s. And still we have Malcolm Elliott, the Sheffield rider, tucked in nicely, 2nd man in that big pack. Well, just 2 laps to go as they come through the hill. Clark trying to pull Barras clear. This will be a tremendous sprint if they survive. Both are among the fastest riders in the world over 100 metres. And Clark is on the front. Barras unwilling to help at all with the pace. Sid Barras, who is 3rd at Bradford, and Clark won't like this. Clark will want Sid to come through, and I'm sure he's telling him. I'm sure he's saying, come on through, Sid, don't just sit there, help us out, because otherwise we'll get caught. But it could well be that Sid Barras is flat out. He's anxious to know where the race is. Gary Sadler is bringing the race up for the Falcon boys. Tony James, the winner at Bradford, is moving into contention. What a finish this is going to be. 1.5 laps to go. Clark is committed now. He could have spent far too much energy to break clear. It hasn't worked. The big teams from Falcon have come up. Sadler has brought them up, brought his leader in yellow back into contention, and it looks to me as though Shane Sutton has come up into second place. Well, what a finish this is going to be. They are 870 yards away from the finish. A little over 1 lap to go now. The whole field is in contention, and no one can say this race has been slow. These riders have attacked and attacked, but no one has managed to break away. 1 lap to go now as the field tries inside 800 yards to the finish. And where is the yellow jersey of Tony James? Out of it, I would say. It looks like Mike Doyle on the front now, pulling through Steve Jockin and Sid Barris. All 3 riders a member of the Modusel team from Stoke-on-Trent. Jockin was second at Bradford. Barris is there. Barris on the left. Barris immediately goes to the front now. This could be a Yorkshire victory here. Barris goes through. Doyle takes second place now. Malcolm Elliott trying to get on terms. Steve Jockin, the pocket rocket on the right. And Barris trying now to get Steve Jockin on his wheel. Elliott takes third place. The rider who crashed at Bradford is now in contention here in the city of Leeds. And Elliott goes in the white jersey. Barris takes it across the road. Elliott sees the gap in the middle. And it's Jockin on the left and Elliott. Jockin on the left. Elliott comes through. Malcolm Elliott, the rider who crashed at Bradford, crosses the line at Leeds and takes the flag tonight. He knocks out Steve Jockin, who for the second time here in Yorkshire crosses the line in second place. And there we are. Congratulations all round. Malcolm Elliott delighted to be back on the winners' podium after that crash at Bradford. And there is the result. Malcolm Elliott, the double Commonwealth Games gold medalist, now 4 years on, takes the line. Steve Jockin second for the second time, and Sid Barris third for the second time also.
Well, you won't often see a better finish than that, and I've got the jubilant winner, Malcolm Elliott, with me. Malcolm, it's been quite a week for you, hasn't it?
Well, yes, after Wednesday, I was obviously out to prove something here in my home county, but I was up against it from the start with only 1 team member here. The rest are all ill and injured, so yeah, I knew that I'd be up against it tonight. About 20 laps to go, I felt really weak, and there was attack after attack going, and I was having all on just to hold the pace. But about 10 to go, I began to rally around a little bit, and I got on the back of the Modusel train. Sid Barris and Steve Jockin, they were very organised on the last lap with leading each other out there. And fortunately, I managed to tag onto the back of them and came around the last corner in third place, as you'll have seen. And once I got the finish banner there in my sights, there wasn't anything going to come between me. I just, if I can get a clear run to the finish, that's magic for me.
Terrific, and great for you to win here in Leeds.
Yeah, terrific. A marvellous crowd here as well.
Yeah, smashing. Well done, Malcolm. Really enjoyed the race, and there we are. We've had 2 smashing races in the city centres of Bradford and Leeds. For the news, of course, that Sheffield's Malcolm Elliott is the winner of tonight's race. From the centre of Leeds, we wish you a very good night.